if Trump had been successfully murdered, that would have pleased a lot of people. I hate to say that, but it's true. What do you think would have happened then?
Civil war.
Yeah, I think that's
I
unfortunate.
mean, I think that, I think that at the convention, it was something that I wasn't ready to say it yet publicly.
It's so awful.
And so I was, doing the shows and I was talking about it, and, it's kind of a rah-rah event, and you were there. It was fun. It was very upbeat.
It was fun.
But at the same time, in the back of my head, I'm thinking, this would never have happened. That something would have broken out. And if that bullet had been 2 inches to the right, I mean, you'd be looking at massive uprisings all over the country.
That was my first reaction too. But then I thought, in order to rise up against something, you have to be organized.
Well, and I'm not saying it'd be successful.
Well, that's exactly right. And if you really think about it, yes, Trump voters have lots of guns, but they have no way to communicate with each other.
Well, Tucker, here's what would happen.
That's by design.
Here's what would happen is you would see pockets of uprisings, probably around Mar-a-Lago, different things like that, and certainly different swaths of the country. We can all do the math on where that would be. And they would be put down, and those people would, you take January 6th, and then that operation that was run on people who attended January 6th would be run nationwide.
Of course.
When every Trump supporter becomes a member of the militia, you're a member of the insurrection, not because you went to January 6th, but because you're a Trump supporter, you're a potential extremist.
Every white man in America is a suspect.
So the election's done at that point.
Yeah.
The election's done. So you're not voting. It's not a real election. Sure, you go through the motions, the same way they're going through the motions of this fake, open primary, open process that Obama's talking about, but it's not real. So you would have it set up where it's a fait accompli, where you've now criminalized your entire opposition nationwide. And you're sure there'd be fighting. There's no question there'd be fighting. There'd be bloodshed. But I do think because of the lack of organization, and because, look, despite what the media might tell you, that Republicans generally aren't insurrectionists. Like, people aren't actually
just the opposite.
Planning
they
to do this.
believe in the system. They like the system that we had for 250 years. It worked imperfectly, but still better than anyone else's system. And these dark forces have destroyed the system. And it wasn't the right that did that. It wasn't. Actually.
No, it certainly wasn't. And so you see this through, and by the way, this is what these dark forces do in any system where they want it to, whether it be pre-revolution France, whether it be Russia, whether it be Spain in the 1930s, whether it be, of course, China in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, et cetera, going up to the founding of the People's Republic of China. This is what always happens. So you see the infiltration through the institutions, you see agitation. By the way, you see direct operations run on the military, like we saw in the Russian Revolution, that it was the military that was really heavily targeted, and many of these units were used for radicalization. So the deserters from the Imperial Army become the first units of the Red Army, right? But instead of the guns pointing towards Germany, the German agent, Lenin, is then able to use them to turn their guns towards St. Petersburg.
Of course.
And so this level of subversion, this level of infiltration, now, of course, it's done differently now. And so because revolutions are different, because warfare is different, so it's not third generation warfare anymore, or fourth generation, it's fifth generation. So we wouldn't expect to see literal civil wars. You would see things playing out, some kinetic aspects, but mainly online. So online, state power, regime power, and pockets of resistance.
That's right. And to continue the analogy, there's always a Kerensky who, promises to return to like the sensible center, but actually, unwittingly or not, is abetting the revolutionaries.
Yeah, I think Kerensky just got taken out.
Yeah, well, maybe that's right. But I certainly see a lot of them on the right. I mean, there were Republicans yesterday. Mitt Romney was one of them, who were sort of sending out tributes to Joe Biden for his selfless act on behalf of the nation, when it's not even clear that he had anything to do with it at all. It was just transparently non-democratic what happened yesterday.
Well, because
transparently,
when you're part of that
for someone
world,
like Mitt Romney to endorse that is so dark. Like, how can that guy be a senator, much less a Republican senator?
Meanwhile, at the same time, you've got Aaron Sorkin running around in op-ed saying that the Democrats should nominate. This is before we knew about that Biden dropped out. But yesterday morning, Aaron Sorkin has this huge piece saying that Mitt Romney should be the nominee of the Democrats to put him in. And so this goes to show you that at the end of the day, they don't care about the R, they don't care about the D, they don't care about whatever ideology they claim to be about. It's all about power. It's all about the club. It's all about Leviathan. It's all about the machine. And if you are going to keep things going, if you're going to keep the machine going, if you're going to keep the permanent state going and the permanent managerial class, whatever, everyone's got they're like their own name for it, whatever what you want to call this system, that you're going to keep that going, you're our guy.
So you got to wonder, I mean,
Or
maybe this is
gal in this
unknowable,
case.
but Nikki Haley, who cheered the violence of the BLM riots, as Mitt Romney did as well, like, what do you think she thought when Trump got shot, honestly?
Tucker, I think Nikki Haley's an opportunist. I think she's someone who's incredibly ambitious. I think she's willing to go whichever way the wind's blowing. And I think Nikki Haley's first question probably was, how bad is it?
Yeah.
Because she knew that the same forces, by the way, that were trying to block J.D. Vance from becoming vice president would all have lined up behind a Nikki Haley candidacy at the convention. So we've got the Civil War aspect aside. Let's say what happens to the primary. It would have come down most likely to Nikki Haley versus Don Jr. I think that Don Jr. would have kind of inherited certainly the sympathy and also the legacy. He's got the name. Everybody knows that he's his father's biggest supporter. And he's got the name ID to actually do that. So I think you would have seen the Trump grassroots base line up behind Don Jr., but you would see the oligarchs, you would see the power, you would see the money, a lot of this lining up behind
as they were before. I just don't understand the utility or the wisdom in keeping people like Nikki Haley or Mike Pompeo around. I mean, I had a friend once with an awful girlfriend, and she was just not a good person at all. And he married her, and she became an awful wife, and then wrecked his life. And I'm not saying that people don't change or redemption's impossible. Clearly they do, and it is. But it's unwise to keep bad people around you. And it's dangerous, actually. I don't understand why Nikki Haley or Mike Pompeo, who's a criminal, would be speaking at the Republican convention. That's not unity. That's a threat to you and to the country, I think.
And if you want to go really dark, Tucker, the question is, do we have clarity on when Nikki Haley was actually added to the RNC platform? When she was added to the schedule?
No.
I don't have clarity on that either, but I know that she initially wasn't there. So the story goes that Haley and Ron DeSantis, who had run against Trump in the primary, were initially not slated to speak on the RNC agenda. And at some point, they were later put on. Nikki Haley, of course, mentions in her speech, Donald Trump wants me to be here. And now there's that clip where it turns back to, I think it's Trump talking to J.D. Vance, and he's sort of mouthing his lips, and they've done the lip sync and says that, the lip reading, and says that she wanted to speak. Here we go. So she wanted to speak. So Nikki Haley was able to push herself in, and whoever's running that piece said, okay, well, in the name of unity, we're going to let her in now. Well, Donald Trump gets up at these rallies again and again, and he recites the snake poem. He's talking about illegal immigrants usually. Well, wouldn't the same thing apply to Nikki Haley and Mike Pompeo and John Bolton and all of these types?
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe to it. And by the way, you can hit the little bell on there and get notifications every time we produce a video. We hope you'll do that also.